The morning fog in Eugene, Oregon, lingered like a veil over the Moore family home, quiet and still after the funeral. The once lively chatter of family gatherings was now replaced by silence and the bitter weight of goodbye. The scent of lilies, Ethan always thought they smelled more like sorrow than sweetness, clung to the hallway curtains. Ethan Moore stood near the kitchen window, holding a ceramic mug filled with now cold coffee. Outside, guests slowly trickled out, some offering lingering hugs, others respectful nods. None stayed long. Behind him, Amanda, his wife, gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "You should sit." "Nathan's waiting for the reading," she said softly. Ethan gave a small nod. "I just needed a second." They both knew this day was coming. Their mother, Alice Moore, had passed away 2 months after their father, a quiet and painful decline. In her final days, she spoke often about her hopes that her 2 sons would always look after one another, no matter how life twisted their paths. In the living room, the fireplace crackled low, more for comfort than warmth. A middle-aged lawyer in a pressed suit, Mr. Halpern, unfolded the official papers. Nathan Moore, 5 years older than Ethan and dressed in a tailored blazer, leaned back on the leather sofa with a barely hidden smirk. Ethan took his seat across from his brother, their knees nearly touching, though the emotional distance felt like miles. "Thank you both for being here," Mr. Halpern began. "This is the last will and testament of Alice and Harold Moore, updated and notarized 3 months before Mr. Moore passed." Nathan exhaled impatiently. "Let's just get to it, shall we?" The lawyer adjusted his glasses, then read, "To our beloved sons, Nathan and Ethan, we leave our home property, divided into 2 lots as recorded with the county office. One portion, the eastern lot with the apple orchard, is to be given to Ethan Moore. The western lot, including the barn and creek trail, to Nathan Moore." Ethan blinked slowly. He hadn't known about the exact division, but it made sense. Both lots had sentimental value. The orchard had been his project with their father during high school summers, and Nathan always preferred the land near the creek where he'd built forts and later hosted barbecues. But Nathan's lips tightened. "They split it?" he asked, eyebrows raised. "Yes," Mr. Halpern confirmed. "The lots are of roughly equal value, though each has unique features. Your parents were very specific in their instructions that the division should honor both your childhood memories and your future potential." Nathan leaned back, silent now, though a flicker of something dark crossed his face. Ethan noticed it, but said nothing. After the reading concluded and the lawyer left with his briefcase, the brothers remained in the dimly lit living room. Amanda had moved to the kitchen to clean the few remaining dishes, quietly giving them space. Nathan finally broke the silence. "So what do you plan to do with your piece of land?" Ethan shrugged, his voice calm. "Nothing yet. Maybe keep the orchard going. Dad and I used to talk about turning it into a little farm stand for the community. Nothing big." Nathan chuckled, more scoff than amusement. "Still thinking small, huh? That land could be worth hundreds of thousands in a couple of years if you just develop it. Sell to the right investor. Build rental units." "I'm not in it for profit," Ethan replied gently. "That orchard meant something to Dad. It means something to me." Nathan rolled his eyes. "Nostalgia doesn't pay the bills." He stood, pacing a little. "You know what? You're lucky. That side has better sunlight and fewer water issues. If it weren't for the creek access, I'd say I got the short end of the stick." Ethan looked up at his brother, trying to find the boy he once built treehouses with, the one who covered for him when he broke Mom's vase, who taught him to ride a bike. But that boy seemed long gone, replaced by someone sharper, hungrier. "I'm not here to compare," Ethan said simply. "They gave us something of theirs. That should be enough." Nathan stopped pacing and faced his brother. His jaw was tight. "I think you're making a mistake, Ethan. Letting it sit there, wasting opportunity. But fine, you do what you want with your land." Ethan gave a faint smile. and you'll do what you want with yours. That's fair. The words hung in the air longer than expected, filled with unsaid things. By the time Amanda returned to collect Ethan's coat, Nathan had already left the house. No goodbye. No handshake. As Ethan walked out to the car with his wife, he looked once more at the land, stretching eastward under the winter sky. He remembered the feel of the soil between his fingers, the way his dad laughed as they planted their first row of apple saplings. Amanda, sensing his thoughts, slipped her arm around his. Do you think your brother will be okay? I don't know. Ethan answered truthfully. But I do know this, if he ever needs me, I won't turn my back. And as they drove down the gravel road toward home, Ethan didn't look back. Not because he didn't care, but because he carried the memories forward, just like his father would have wanted. 3 weeks passed. The orchard soil remained untouched. Ethan had spent most of his time settling back into his routine at the woodworking shop, where he crafted custom cabinets and taught vocational classes at the local high school. Though the work was physically tiring, it grounded him, each plank of wood responding to careful hands, not power plays or greed. One crisp Thursday morning, Amanda handed Ethan a stack of mail over breakfast. Something from the county recorder's office, she said, raising an eyebrow. Ethan opened the envelope absent-mindedly between sips of tea. His eyes scanned the paper once, then again. His hand froze. Transfer of deed. Parcel hashtag E193. Grantor, Ethan Moore. Grantee, Nathan Moore. He blinked. This has to be a mistake. Amanda looked up from her oatmeal. What is it? Ethan wordlessly handed her the document. She read it carefully, lips thinning. He transferred your half of the land to himself? I never signed this, Ethan said, voice steady but cold. Then how? Ethan stood, chair creaking behind him. There's a notary seal here. And a forged signature. Amanda's face darkened. You think Nathan did this? Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. That afternoon, Ethan drove straight to the county clerk's office. The lady behind the counter was helpful but cautious. This is a recorded document, Mr. Moore. It appears to be valid. You'd have to contest it in court if you believe it's fraudulent. He stared at the printed copy in his hand. His own name, forged. The date listed was 2 days after the will was read. Nathan hadn't wasted time. On his way home, Ethan stopped by Nathan's office building on River Point Avenue. The glass-front real estate office bore the sign, More Property Solutions. We build legacies. Ethan parked and stepped inside, greeted by sleek wood panels and the faint scent of cologne. A receptionist gave a polite smile. Do you have an appointment? I'm his brother, Ethan replied. I'll only be a minute. She hesitated, then nodded. He's in his office. Down the hall. To the right. Nathan's office was exactly what Ethan expected, minimalist and expensive-looking. He sat behind a dark desk, scrolling through emails. He looked up with surprise. Ethan. Didn't expect to see you here. Ethan held up the document. What is this? Nathan's smile faltered, then returned with a twist. Oh, that. Yeah, I figured you wouldn't mind. You forged my signature. Nathan leaned back. I had the original transfer papers from Dad. Technically, he considered the property as one. He just didn't update the deed before he passed. I made it official. That's not what the will said. Nathan shrugged. The will was sentimental. But you weren't going to use the land anyway. You even said it yourself. You're not in it for the profit. I said I didn't need to make money from it. That doesn't mean I'd hand it over to someone who'd sell it to the highest bidder, Ethan said. Voice firm. You lied to the county office. That's a felony. Nathan stood. Don't get dramatic. It's just land, Ethan. You've got your little shop. I've got a company to run. Let's both stick to what we're good at. Ethan stared at him, something shifting behind his eyes, disappointment more than anger. You can keep the land, Nathan. But know this, he said quietly. It was never about the soil. It was about trust, about family, and you broke both. Nathan opened his mouth, but Ethan had already turned to leave. That evening, Ethan sat outside on their porch, staring into the growing dusk. Amanda joined him, handing over a cup of hot cocoa. "Will you take him to court?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "I could. I have every right. But I won't." "Why?" "Because I won't let him drag me into the same pit he's sinking into." "He wants the land?" "Fine. Let him carry the weight of how he got it." Amanda looked at him for a long moment. "You always take the high road. Doesn't it get lonely up there?" He smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But I sleep well at night." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I wish you didn't have to keep proving you're the better man." "I'm not trying to prove anything," he murmured. "I just want to live in a way Dad would be proud of, even if my brother can't." They sat there in silence, the stars slowly appearing overhead, while across town, Nathan toasted champagne with a group of investors, celebrating the new acquisition that wasn't truly his. But what none of them saw coming was that the earth never blesses greed for long. The following Saturday, Ethan spent the morning pruning the overgrown hedges in front of his workshop, trying to shake the weight from his shoulders. Despite his calm words to Amanda, the betrayal festered quietly in his chest. Every clipped branch and swept path was another outlet for anger he refused to let take over. Inside, his students were already trickling into the workshop classroom, high schoolers from the local vocational program. Some came from difficult homes. Others just preferred sawdust and chisels over screens and spreadsheets. "Morning, Mr. Moore," called out Luis, a lanky sophomore with messy curls. Ethan managed a smile. "Morning. Grab your safety goggles. We're working on joint frames today." He lost himself in the rhythm of instruction. Wood grain, angles, balance. These were things that didn't lie. They didn't backstab or manipulate. They followed rules, and if treated with care, they stood strong. Halfway through the session, the school counselor Mrs. Trent popped in with a clipboard. "Ethan, when you get a minute, there's someone I'd like you to meet." Ethan wiped his hands and followed her to the front office. A young woman in a business suit stood waiting, eyes bright and posture confident. "This is Ms. Rachel Lynn from the state's youth employment program," Mrs. Trent said. "She's visiting promising vocational sites in rural counties." Rachel stepped forward with a smile. "We've heard about your work with local teens. And frankly, Mr. Moore, what you've built here, it's rare." Ethan looked down, modestly. "It's just a shop. I teach them how to make tables and cabinets." "But you're building more than furniture," she said. "You're giving them purpose." Mrs. Trent added, "And Rachel's program comes with funding, potentially even grants to expand the workshop into a regional model." Ethan was quiet. He wasn't used to attention. Certainly not from the state. "I appreciate that. But I'm not a businessman." Rachel smiled. "That's exactly why we're here. We want educators, not salesmen." That evening, Ethan sat at the dining table with Amanda, relaying the entire encounter. She listened closely, then asked, "If this works out, it could mean hiring more help, right? Expanding the space? Maybe even scholarships for the kids." Ethan nodded. But he paused. "I feel strange accepting it when my own brother thinks I'm just a fool with a hammer." Amanda leaned forward. "Don't you see? While Nathan plays Monopoly with land, you're building something that lasts people. The kind of legacy your parents would actually be proud of." He met her gaze. "But why does it still feel like I lost?" "Because your heart isn't made for winning or losing, Ethan," she said softly. "It's made for growing." Meanwhile, on the other side of Eugene, Nathan Moore was struggling to keep his own plans afloat. The land he claimed, now fully under his name, had caught the attention of a flashy group of investors based in Portland. The pitch was simple. Build high-end cabins along the creek, promote it as a luxury escape, and flip the property within 2 years. The numbers dazzled on paper. Nathan saw dollar signs. What he didn't see was the fine print. At that week's investor meeting, he presented grand slideshows and drone footage of the property. The land looked pristine. Investors clapped, some signing checks. Others demanded permits. That's when the problem started. The county won't approve full development until we run environmental assessments, one of the investors said. There's concern about protected wetland near the creek. Nathan blinked. That's never been an issue before. It is now, the investor replied. Any delay means cost. Your name's on the land. If the deal gets blocked, we're holding you responsible. Nathan swallowed. I'll talk to the county. But deep down, panic crept in. He had overextended, again, just like before. A week later, Ethan received a call from his old friend Mike, who worked in the county office. Hey, just a heads up, Mike said. Some developers flagged your old land for a project. They're trying to push it through despite environmental risks. Thought you should know. Ethan sighed. It's not mine anymore. I know. But it used to be. I figured you'd want to keep an eye on it. After the call, Ethan sat for a long time in silence, staring out at the trees behind his home. He could almost hear his father's voice again. Land isn't just soil. It remembers. It holds your choices. That weekend, Ethan visited the old land for the first time since the betrayal. The orchard was gone, trees uprooted, replaced by yellow markers and orange flags. Nathan's crew had cleared everything. The soil was stripped bare. He walked slowly, his boots crunching over broken branches and disturbed earth. At the far edge, where the old swing used to hang, a sign read, Future Site, Creekwood Residences. And yet beneath the scarred landscape, he still saw his father's footprints. His own laughter as a boy. His mother's voice calling them in for lunch. It was all still there, buried just beneath the surface. Ethan knelt and ran his hand through the soil. I forgive you, he whispered, not to the land, but to his brother. He stood and turned away. The kind with polished stone facades and perfectly aligned shrubs. The contrast between this place and the raw, quiet land they both grew up on was striking and unsettling. He hadn't intended to come. For weeks, he told himself that silence was the nobler path. But standing on the ravaged remains of the orchard, what used to be his father's pride, now reduced to flag stakes and survey lines, had broken something inside him. Not rage, not vengeance, just sorrow deep enough to demand a voice. He rang the bell. No answer. He knocked louder. Finally, the door opened. Nathan stood in gym clothes, towel around his neck, eyes narrowing. Well, well. The monk leaves his temple. I need to talk to you, Ethan said quietly. Nathan stepped aside. Come in. Or would you prefer to lecture me from the porch like Dad used to? Ethan walked in without a word. The house smelled of expensive cleaning agents and cologne. Cold. Polished. Unlived. They sat in the living room, opposite ends of a leather sectional that could have seated 10. Nathan poured himself a glass of water. Didn't offer Ethan any. So, he asked, sipping. I went to the land, Ethan said. Nathan chuckled. You say that like it's sacred ground. It was. For Dad. For Mom. For us. Nathan rolled his eyes. Don't give me that sentimental garbage. It's land. It's value. It's opportunity. You destroyed the orchard. Because orchards don't sell, Nathan snapped. Luxury cabins do. And what about the environmental restrictions? Ethan pressed. Did you tell your investors about the wetlands? About the risk of county rejection. Nathan's smirk faltered, just slightly. You're in trouble, Nathan, Ethan continued. And you're dragging their money, your name, and our family legacy into that mess. Don't pretend you're here because you care, Nathan said, voice rising. You're here to gloat. The little brother finally sees big brother fall on his face. I'm here because what you're doing matters, Ethan said, his voice steady. Not just to me. To everyone who ever believed we could be more than this. Nathan scoffed. You mean Mom and Dad? They're gone. All they left us was land and expectations. I chose to do something with it. No. You chose to take what wasn't yours, Ethan said calmly. And you did it thinking I wouldn't fight back. There was a long pause. The only sound was the tick of the designer wall clock. Nathan's voice was low now. I thought you were too weak to care. Ethan's gaze was steady. You mistook mercy for weakness. That's on you. Nathan stood, pacing. You don't get it, Ethan. I've put everything into this deal. If it collapses, I lose everything. My name, my clients, my house. You've already lost more than that, Ethan said. You just don't see it yet. Nathan turned. You'd really let me fall, wouldn't you? Ethan stood, too. You already did. You just haven't hit the ground. There was silence. The brothers stared at each other, the years of love, resentment, rivalry, and unspoken pain hanging like smoke between them. Then Ethan spoke one last time. When Mom died, she asked me to take care of you. Even when you made it hard. I kept that promise. Even when you forged my name. Even now. Nathan looked stunned. You knew she said that? I was there, Ethan replied. At her bedside. You weren't. Nathan swallowed. His bravado cracked. Ethan moved to the door. Before he left, he turned back. You can still fix this. Not just the land. Yourself. Nathan didn't answer. Ethan left quietly, closing the door behind him. That night, Nathan sat alone in the dark, scrolling through his emails. Investor demands. Legal warnings. A flagged permit application from the county. He poured himself a drink and stared at the photo on the mantel, him and Ethan as boys, mud on their jeans, grinning beside the first apple tree they planted with Dad. He picked it up, thumb tracing the edges. Then he set it back down and opened his laptop. The next week passed like a storm building over quiet ground. Nathan Moore was scrambling, trying to hold together the frayed seams of a collapsing business deal. The investors, once enthusiastic, were now becoming vultures circling a failing project. County officials had denied the first permit request citing environmental risks, and a second, more detailed review was pending. Each phone call sounded more like a threat. You didn't disclose the wetland risk. You told us the land was clean. You're on the hook, Nathan. Not us. By Thursday, Nathan had maxed out 2 credit cards, laid off 3 staff, and started moving files into cardboard boxes. His once bustling real estate office echoed with emptiness. Even his assistant, Rebecca, stopped offering sympathetic glances. He sat alone at his desk, head in his hands. For the first time in years, Nathan felt something worse than fear, humiliation. He had everything once, or so he thought. The houses, the parties, the deals. But what was left now? A pile of debts, and a brother he had wronged. Ethan, meanwhile, was experiencing a very different kind of pressure, one that felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Rachel Lynn from the state's youth employment program returned with good news. We've officially approved your grant application, she announced, handing him a folder at the workshop. You're going to receive $120,000 in state funds, half for equipment upgrades, half for expansion. Ethan blinked. That's more than I imagined. Rachel beamed. We believe in this place, Ethan. And we believe in you. The students clapped and cheered. Luis even shouted, Mr. Moore's getting famous. Ethan laughed. Though a part of him still felt the familiar ache, that small tug that reminded him his brother should be here too. Should have celebrated. Should have built something alongside him. Later that day, as the kids filed out, Amanda met Ethan at the shop with their daughter, Emily, bouncing in her arms. You did it, she said proudly. We did it, he corrected, kissing her on the forehead. They sat in the back office, planning renovations and equipment purchases. For a brief, golden moment, everything felt exactly right. Until Ethan's phone rang. It was an unknown number from downtown Eugene. Nathan's voice crackled through the line, low and strained. I need to talk. Ethan said nothing for a moment. Please, Nathan added. Not for business. Just me. Ethan exhaled slowly. Come by the shop. After hours. No one else. I'll be there. That evening, the workshop smelled like sawdust and lemon oil. The light was soft, filtering through the high windows as Ethan wiped down the workbenches. Nathan arrived in a wrinkled shirt and tired eyes. The difference from their last meeting was stark. He looked smaller. Not in stature, but in spirit. Ethan didn't speak. He simply gestured to a wooden stool by the counter. Nathan sat heavily. I lost the deal, he said. It's all falling apart. I owe more than I can pay. Investors are circling like sharks. Ethan folded his arms, watching him. What do you want me to say? Nathan's shoulders sank. I guess I wanted you to know you were right. About all of it. I thought taking that land, building something flashy, would make me matter. But all I did was erase everything that mattered to us. There was a long silence. Then Ethan asked, what now? Nathan swallowed. I don't know. I might have to sell the land. Or what's left of it. But no one wants it now, not with the permit issues. You burned the orchard, Ethan said softly. I know, Nathan replied. I hate myself for it. Another pause. Then Ethan walked over to a nearby cabinet and pulled out an old photo frame. He placed it on the bench between them. It was a picture of two muddy boys beside an apple tree, their father's strong hands resting on their shoulders, their mother in the background, laughing. Nathan stared at it, eyes watering. I don't expect you to forgive me, he whispered. Ethan looked at him steadily. I already did. Nathan blinked. Why? Because I promised Mom. And because you're my brother. Nathan wiped his eyes, ashamed. Ethan continued, I can't fix what you did. But if you want to start over, I'll help. Not with money. Not with shortcuts. But with work. Real work. Nathan nodded slowly. I want that. I really do. Ethan offered his hand. Nathan took it, and for the first time in years, their handshake wasn't a formality or a transaction. It was a beginning. The morning after their quiet reconciliation, Nathan stood outside Ethan's workshop with a thermos of gas station coffee and uncertainty weighing heavy on his shoulders. He hesitated before entering, the sound of buzzing saws and hammering echoing from inside. This wasn't his world. It never had been. He was more accustomed to email chains, investor decks, and business lunches, not the scent of cedar and calloused hands. Still, he stepped through the door. Ethan looked up from a student's project. You're early. Nathan gave a tight smile. Didn't want to back out. Good. Because I already assigned you to the sanding table. Nathan blinked. Sanding, as in. Sanding, Ethan repeated. Raw wood. No machines yet. Just a sanding block. Your hands and patience. Nathan chuckled awkwardly. This feels like punishment. It's not, Ethan said calmly. It's the foundation. You'll understand when you feel the grain. For the first hour, Nathan struggled. His arms ached. The sanding paper kept slipping. The rhythm was off, and he kept glancing at his watch every 5 minutes. Meanwhile, the teenagers around him worked quietly and steadily, offering only polite nods in his direction. By midday, Ethan came over and crouched beside him. Let me show you something. He took the board Nathan had been working on and ran his hand across it. See this part here? He pointed to an uneven surface. You went against the grain. It looks rushed. I was trying to go faster, Nathan admitted. That's the problem, Ethan said gently. Wood doesn't care about your deadlines. It requires attention, not speed. You've got to respect the way it was grown. Nathan stared at the board. I never thought about it that way. I know, Ethan replied. That's why you're here. That night, Nathan drove home with sawdust in his hair and sweat clinging to his back. He looked like someone else in the mirror, messy, tired, but honest. For the first time in a long while, there was no mask. He texted Ethan. Thanks for today. I didn't expect to feel this. Grounded. Ethan replied simply. Keep showing up. That's the work. Over the next few weeks, Nathan did just that. He showed up every morning, sometimes earlier than Ethan. He learned how to measure angles with precision, how to distinguish cherry wood from oak by touch, and how to sand so smoothly the surface shimmered under light. Luis, the student who once joked about famous Mr. Moore, eventually offered to help Nathan align drawer joints. You're not so bad for a newbie, he teased. Nathan grinned. You're not so bad for a teenager. The boys and girls who once eyed him warily now shared jokes and advice. It was humbling to be taught by high schoolers, but Nathan accepted it without pride. He had burned the orchard. He couldn't undo that, but he could grow something new. One Friday afternoon, Ethan called for a break and invited Nathan to the back porch of the workshop, where they kept a picnic bench under a shady tree. Ethan passed him a bottle of lemonade. You've improved. The kids like having you around. Nathan nodded, sipping. It feels good. Real. No chasing clients, no bluffing through presentations. You ever think about starting over? Not just for work, your whole life. Nathan stared ahead, the wind rustling branches above. I've been thinking about it a lot, actually. Selling the house. Downsizing. Maybe even applying to be an instructor. Ethan turned to him, surprised. You'd teach. I've learned more about people in this shop than I ever did in business school, Nathan said. I want to pass that on. Ethan smiled. Then maybe the orchard wasn't wasted after all. Nathan's voice was soft. I miss them. Mom and Dad. Every day. Me too, Ethan said. But I think if they saw us now, they'd smile. The brothers sat in silence, letting the weight of the past rest quietly between them, no longer heavy with blame, but full of meaning. Later that night, Nathan returned to the site of the old orchard. The land still bore the scars of his past mistakes, bulldozed soil, abandoned stakes, and broken roots. But beneath the chaos, wild grasses had begun to sprout, soft and green against the brown earth. Nathan kneeled and ran his fingers through the soil. I don't deserve forgiveness, he murmured. But maybe I can earn a second chance. He pulled a small wooden box from his coat pocket. Inside were apple seeds, ones he had quietly gathered from the old trees before they were cleared. He planted the first seed, then another, each one a quiet vow, not to restore what was lost, but to rebuild something new. The next Monday, Ethan found Nathan already sweeping the workshop floor, humming under his breath. You're early, Ethan said, setting his coffee down. Nathan leaned on the broom with a sheepish smile. Yeah. Well, sweeping is less exhausting than sanding. Ethan chuckled. That depends who you ask. They shared a quiet moment before Ethan spoke again. I've been thinking, with the grant coming in, we've got room to grow. More equipment, more students, even a real curriculum. Nathan looked up. You mean turning this into an official program? More than that, Ethan said. I want to create something lasting. A place where kids who've been overlooked can learn skills and find purpose. Not just woodwork. Life. Nathan nodded slowly. That's powerful. You've seen these kids, Nate. Some of them don't get support at home. They come in lost, but when they build something with their own hands, you can see it, the pride. Nathan's eyes narrowed in thought. You need someone to help run it. Ethan tilted his head. You volunteering? I am, Nathan said seriously, not just to help, but to build it with you. Structure. Schedule. Outreach. All the boring stuff you hate. Ethan laughed. True. I'd rather wrestle a warped plank than write a grant report. Well, lucky for you, I still remember how to format a budget. Nathan grinned. This time, I'll put it to good use. By the end of that week, the two brothers had transformed the small back office into a makeshift planning room. The walls were covered in sticky notes, hand-drawn floor plans, printed outlines for vocational modules, and possible names for the new program. Names brainstormed. Grain and Grit. The Craft Path. Second Chance Workshop. True North Woodworks. Luis and the other students joined in the process too. I like Second Chance Workshop, Luis said. Sounds like what this place really is. Nathan glanced at Ethan. He's got a point. Ethan nodded. It fits. Rachel Lynn from the state program returned a few days later, impressed by the progress. You've gone from local hero to community model in less than a month, she told Ethan. If you can submit a full proposal for the extended grant cycle, I can fast-track you for a partnership with nearby districts. Nathan spoke up. We'll have it ready by next week. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You're his business partner and brother, Nathan said with pride. She smiled. Well, then this is going to be even more interesting. After she left, Ethan leaned back and crossed his arms. You handled that like a pro. Old habits, Nathan said. Only now they're not for profit. One evening, Amanda joined the brothers as they reviewed the first official draft of the program's proposal. She poured coffee and sat beside Ethan, reading quietly as the two men debated fonts and formatting. At one point, she interrupted with a smile. I never thought I'd see the day. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Which part? The proposal or Nathan willingly using Excel? She laughed. Both. Nathan grinned. You know, I'm starting to think sawdust and spreadsheets might not be a bad combination. Amanda looked between the two. Your parents would have been proud. There was a moment of silence. No one spoke. But the feeling in the room was clear: gratitude, healing, hope. As word spread about Second Chance Workshop, applications began pouring in. Local high school counselors recommended students. Parents called, asking about weekend classes. Even volunteers from the community offered to help paint walls or donate materials. One day, Ethan walked into the shop to find Nathan showing a group of ninth graders how to build a birdhouse. You mark the corner like this, watch your fingers, then use the square to line it up. The kids watched him closely, asking questions, laughing at his occasional mistakes. Later, when they left, Ethan handed Nathan a piece of paper. A parent dropped this off. It was a letter. Handwritten. It read, My son said for the first time he wants to go to school because of your class. Thank you for helping him believe he can build something even when we couldn't. Nathan read it 3 times. He sat down, stunned. I spent my whole life trying to make people believe I was somebody, and this letter means more than any of it. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. You are somebody, Nate. You always were. You just needed a different blueprint. That night, Nathan drove back to the old orchard site. He brought with him a wooden sign, freshly carved. He hammered it into the soil, just above the small green sprouts pushing through. More Legacy Grove, replanted with hope. No cameras. No ribbon cutting. Just him. And the ghosts of the people he finally stopped trying to outshine. The morning of the official launch arrived like the first day of school. Crisp air. Nervous footsteps. New beginnings. The front of Second Chance Workshop looked different now, freshly painted white walls with green trim, a wooden sign hand-carved by Ethan that read, Build with purpose. Grow with heart. Inside, folding chairs had been arranged neatly in rows. The scent of varnish and cedar filled the room. On one of the tables lay a stack of welcome folders, each one hand-labeled with the students' names. Amanda helped arrange last-minute coffee and muffins in the back, while Ethan triple-checked the schedule posted on the corkboard. Everything was ready, except Nathan. He stood in the small supply room, staring at himself in the mirror above the utility sink. His hands trembled. He had taught clients, presented to investors, spoken in front of conference rooms full of adults. But this felt different. Rawer, more honest, more terrifying. Because for the first time, he wasn't selling an idea. He was standing inside one. A quiet knock at the door broke his thoughts. It was Ethan. You okay? Nathan swallowed. What if they see right through me? Ethan leaned against the doorway. Then they'll see a man who made mistakes and got up again. Nathan chuckled nervously. You make it sound so noble. It's not noble. It's real. And they need real. Nathan looked away. I'm scared. Ethan. I know, Ethan said. That means you're ready. 10 minutes later, 15 students filed into the workshop. They came from different schools, different stories. Some wore tough expressions. Others sat silently, arms crossed. These were kids used to being overlooked, underestimated, or worse, given up on. Ethan opened the session with his usual calm. Welcome to Second Chance Workshop, he said, voice steady. This place is for you. Not just to learn a trade, but to learn yourselves. No grades. No tests. Just effort. And growth. He nodded toward Nathan, who stood beside a stack of fresh planks. This is Nathan. He's going to lead the first session. Nathan froze for a breath, then stepped forward. Hey, he began, rubbing his palms together. I'm Nathan. You don't know me. And I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not. The room was quiet. I used to wear a suit and talk in boardrooms. Made a lot of money. Lost more. Thought success was how much people listened to me. He glanced at Ethan. Turns out, success is how much you listen to others. Some students looked up. I'm not a master carpenter. I'm still learning. Just like you. But I do know what it's like to mess up. To feel like you've burned every bridge. That nobody sees you anymore. Now, a few heads were nodding. So, let's build something today. A box. It might not sound exciting, but it's how we begin. Simple. Straight lines. But made with your own hands. Luis raised his hand with a smirk. What if I already know how to make one? Nathan smiled. Then teach someone who doesn't. You're not here to compete. You're here to connect. That broke the room open. A few chuckles. Some exchanges of glances. And then, movement. The sound of chairs pushing back. Of students gathering wood. Of the shop coming to life. Nathan's hands still shook a little when he picked up the measuring tape. But he caught himself. Took a breath. Slowed down. Like Ethan had taught him. Always measure twice, he muttered. Cut once. Luis overheard and repeated it out loud. Measure twice. Cut once. That's the rule. It's the rule, Nathan confirmed. Another student, Ava, asked, How do I know if I'm doing it right? Nathan paused. Feel the wood, he said. It'll tell you. She gave him a look but did as he said and smiled when her cut came out clean. By the end of the session, 12 of 15 students had completed their boxes. Some crooked, some sturdy, some stained with effort, but all of them theirs. Ethan called the group together. Today you didn't just make a box, he said. You started a story. And stories are what keep us going. He turned to Nathan. You did great. Nathan laughed quietly. I didn't faint. I'll take that as a win. One student, a boy named Jaden who hadn't spoken all morning, lingered behind. As the others filed out, he approached Nathan. You really messed up before? Jaden asked bluntly. Nathan nodded. Yeah, big time. Jaden paused. And now you teach here? Nathan looked at him. I get to teach here. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Jaden nodded slowly, then held out his wooden box. It's a little uneven. Nathan took it carefully, inspecting the angles. Maybe, but it's real, and that makes it perfect. That night, Ethan and Nathan sat outside the workshop, under the same stars that once watched them argue, drift, break. Now, they watched them rebuild. Nathan leaned back, his voice softer than usual. This is what I should have been doing all along. Ethan smiled. Sometimes the longest way around is the only way through. Nathan raised his lemonade bottle. To second chances. Ethan clinked his against it. And to the ones who make them count. The sun filtered gently through the slatted windows of the workshop that morning, painting golden lines on the floor. Ethan was already at his bench, smoothing the edge of a cherrywood drawer. The hum of students' voices, mixed with the scrape of sandpaper and the rhythm of hammers, the music of a new kind of school. Nathan walked in with 2 cups of coffee and handed one to Ethan. "Guess what I did last night?" he asked with a smug smile. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Finally figured out how to sharpen your own chisels?" "Better," Nathan said. "I filed the application to become a certified youth instructor through the state." Ethan looked up, genuinely surprised. "That's a big step." "I know," Nathan replied, shrugging. "I figure if I'm going to keep doing this, I should do it right. Legally. Officially." Ethan smiled. "Proud of you, man." Just then, Amanda burst through the side door, holding a crisp envelope in one hand and a look of disbelief on her face. "You need to see this," she said breathlessly, handing it to Ethan. He opened it, eyes scanning the letter once, then twice. Nathan noticed the change in his face. "What is it?" Ethan exhaled slowly, reading aloud. "Dear Mr. Ethan Moore, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as the recipient of the Oregon Community Builder Award 2025 for your outstanding work with youth vocational training and service to the public." Nathan's mouth dropped. "That's the statewide award. With the medal. And the ceremony in Salem." Ethan looked stunned. "I didn't even know I was nominated." Amanda grinned. "Someone did. I might have submitted your name." With a very long letter. Nathan laughed. "Remind me never to underestimate my sister-in-law." The workshop students gathered as Amanda shared the news, and spontaneous applause erupted. Louise started chanting, "Mr. Moore, Mr. Moore," until everyone joined in, even Nathan. Ethan stood there, bashful but glowing, surrounded by sawdust, smiles, and something deeper, respect, earned not with wealth or reputation, but with grit and grace. That weekend, Nathan stood with Ethan at the edge of the old orchard land, the place that had once divided them. The green had returned. Small saplings dotted the field, stubborn and alive. Nathan reached into his truck and pulled out 2 metal nameplates. One read Harold and Alice Moore Grove. The other, "Second Chance Begins Here." He handed the first to Ethan. Ethan traced the letters with his fingers. "You really want to put this here?" Nathan nodded. "They should be remembered for what they gave us, even if it took us a while to understand it." Ethan bent down, planting the sign into the soil beside one of the young apple trees. Nathan followed with the second. They stood in silence a while. No anger, no regrets, just soil, sky, and healing. At the Salem State House, the award ceremony was dignified and warm. Educators, community leaders, and nonprofit founders lined the room. When Ethan's name was called, he walked up in a simple gray suit, no fanfare, no prepared speech. He looked out at the crowd, then down at the medal in his hand. He cleared his throat. "I used to think being successful meant having more money, more recognition. But then I watched students light up when they built something with their own hands. I saw my brother rebuild his life, one sanding stroke at a time. And I realized success is how you help others believe in themselves." In the back row, Nathan clapped the loudest. His eyes wet but smiling. The following Monday, Ethan walked into the workshop, medal tucked into a drawer. Nathan was already there, holding a clipboard. "You're officially famous now," he joked. Ethan smirked. "That was last week. This week we've got a leaky pipe and a stack of supply invoices." Nathan laughed. "Back to the grind." "No," Ethan said, looking around at the students filing in, eager to start. "Back to the grain." 3 months after the launch of Second Chance Workshop, things were blooming. Literally. The small orchard grove that Nathan and Ethan had replanted now had rows of knee-high saplings, and some of the students even volunteered to help water them after class. The workshop itself was running 2 classes a day, 5 days a week, and demand was growing faster than they could manage. Ethan was in his element, quiet, consistent, fulfilled. Nathan was thriving, too, at least on the surface. His days were filled with laughter, wood chips, and lesson plans. Students looked up to him. School counselors sent personal thank you letters. Even his old business colleagues, the few who still stayed in touch, expressed genuine surprise at how grounded he'd become. But then, the letter arrived. It came on a Thursday afternoon. In a plain white envelope with no return address. Amanda had left it on the office desk, assuming it was another grant notification. Nathan found it after class. As he opened it, he hummed softly to himself until the first few lines stopped him cold. To whom it may concern. This letter is a formal inquiry into the employment practices of Second Chance Workshop. It has come to our attention that Mr. Nathan Moore, co-director of the program, was involved in fraudulent property dealings in Eugene and previously misled investors regarding land development permits. And support from the school district outweighed any past concern. They called it a rare example of ethical rehabilitation in practice. Amanda smiled. That's a very fancy way of saying you did the work. Nathan handed the phone to Ethan, speechless. Ethan clapped him on the back. You stood up, he said. Nathan gave a trembling laugh. I was shaking the whole time. Ethan grinned. Yeah, but you didn't fall. The invitation came on a Monday morning, tucked neatly inside an envelope with a gold-embossed seal from the Oregon Board of Education. Ethan opened it in the office and blinked twice. Nathan. He called out, holding the letter, you're not going to believe this. Nathan, brushing wood shavings off his jeans, looked up from across the room. Did I win a chainsaw? Ethan smiled. Better. They want you to give the keynote at the statewide youth development conference in Salem. Topic: Redemption in Action, Vocational Learning as a Lifeline. Nathan froze, the dust brush still in his hand. They want me to speak? In front of educators? Ethan nodded. They want your story, Nate. The real one. Nathan looked stunned, then hesitant. Do they know everything? About what I did? They know enough. And what they really care about, Ethan said, tapping his chest, is who you are now. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Between lesson planning and workshop repairs, Nathan spent late nights outlining his speech. Amanda helped with structure. Ethan helped with heart. I don't want to sound like a martyr. Nathan mumbled one evening, chewing the end of his pen. I just want to sound honest. Then tell the truth, Amanda said. Tell them about the land, the lies, the orchard, and the grove. Nathan looked over. And what if someone twists it again? Uses it against the program? They can try, Ethan replied, but this time, you won't be hiding. You'll be standing right in the light. The night before the conference, Nathan couldn't sleep. He paced, rewrote the opening lines 6 times, practiced his delivery in front of the mirror, only to hate his reflection. Finally, at 2:47 a.m., he stepped outside. The grove shimmered under the pale moonlight. The wind moved through the saplings like whispered encouragement. He walked to the first tree, short, leafy, alive. The one he planted the night he chose to start over. He bent down, placed his hand on the soil, and whispered, I'm ready. The next day, the conference hall was filled with over 300 people, educators, counselors, nonprofit leaders, and state officials. A sea of suits and lanyards. Nathan stood backstage, holding a small note card in one hand, his fingers trembling slightly. Ethan squeezed his shoulder. Remember what this place is called. Nathan managed a shaky smile. Second chance. Exactly. Now go give them theirs. When Nathan stepped onto the stage, the lights blinded him for a moment. But the applause was gentle, encouraging. He found the podium, took a deep breath, and began. 5 years ago, I was the kind of man who would lie to get ahead. I forged my brother's signature. I stole land that wasn't mine. I called it ambition, but it was fear. The audience went silent. Fear of being nothing. Fear of admitting I wasn't enough on my own. He paused, and then I fell. Lost my company, my money, my reputation. I had nothing left but one thing. the chance to ask for forgiveness. He looked up. And my brother gave it. He told them everything. The workshop. The kids. The broken orchard turned into a grove. His first sanding mistake. The day he cried reading a thank you letter from a student's parent. Redemption doesn't erase the past, he said. It reclaims it. And when you let someone try again, when you hand them a chisel instead of a label, you don't just save them. You save yourself. As he stepped down, the room erupted in applause. And for the first time, Nathan didn't shrink from it. But while most people applauded, one man was already typing. David Rains, a mid-tier journalist with a blog focused on hypocrisy in community programs, had attended the conference hoping for a scandal, and now he believed he had one. That night, an article went live on a niche media site titled, Redemption or PR Spin? Keynote speaker at youth conference once accused of land fraud. The article rehashed Nathan's real estate failures, added speculation, and even suggested Second Chance Workshop was a vanity rehab project run by two brothers hiding their past with good press. It included screenshots of public complaints, a copy of the 2019 permit denial, and vague references to anonymous sources questioning the ethics of putting teens around a disgraced ex-businessman. Nathan saw the article the next morning. He stared at the screen, jaw tight, hands numb. He had known it was possible. He just didn't expect it to cut so deep. Ethan read over his shoulder. You okay? Nathan didn't answer. Amanda, walking in, looked at both of them. You knew this could happen. I thought I could control the story, Nathan said, voice hollow. But he's twisted it into something ugly. Ethan knelt beside him. It only becomes truth if you believe it. Nathan stood. What if the parents read this? What if the school board pulls out? Then we tell them the truth, Amanda said. Again. As many times as it takes. Ethan added, and we let our students speak for us. That afternoon, Nathan walked into the workshop with his head held high. He gathered the students and told them about the article. He expected silence, maybe even judgment. Instead, Ava raised her hand. Was it true? That you messed up before? Nathan nodded. Yes. And it's true that you helped build this place? She asked. Also yes. She shrugged. Then I don't care. Luis added. I'd rather learn from someone who knows how to fall and get up than someone who never got their hands dirty. One by one, they nodded. Every single one of them. Nathan felt the tears rise and didn't hide them. He simply whispered, thank you. The next morning, Nathan arrived at the workshop earlier than usual. The sun had barely broken through the clouds. The grove behind the building shimmered with dew. But inside, a storm of anxiety still lingered. Though the students had defended him the day before, the article had already begun to spread. Small. Local blogs picked it up. A few whispers circulated online, mostly people asking questions. Should someone with that past be teaching kids? Nathan didn't blame them for asking. He might have done the same once. Still, every footstep he took into the shop felt heavier than the last. Ethan was already there, fitting drawer rails. He looked up and offered a nod, as if nothing had changed. But something had. Because by 9 a.m., a long line of cars began pulling into the gravel lot outside. Parents, teachers, and even local reporters. Amanda stepped in from the back office, a phone in her hand. You're going to want to see this, she said. She turned the screen toward him. Hashtag We Stand With Second Chance was trending locally. Under it were posts, videos, and handwritten letters. A mother had posted a photo of her son building his first bookshelf at the workshop. Mr. Nathan taught him to believe in himself when no one else could. I trust him with my child's future. A local high school principal had tweeted, Redemption is not a marketing tactic. It's the core of education. Proud to partner with Second Chance Workshop. Even Luis posted a video of himself sanding a piece of walnut, saying, if Mr. Nathan's past makes him a bad teacher, then I guess the best ones are the ones who messed up and came back stronger. Nathan read the messages, silent. His hands were shaking again, but this time, not from fear. From something deeper. Ethan stepped beside him. It's not just your name anymore. It's your story. And people are standing with it. Later that day, they held an open meeting for anyone who had concerns, parents, board members, or curious neighbors. Instead of defensiveness, Nathan stood at the front of the room and spoke from the heart. I don't deserve anyone's forgiveness, he said. But I will honor it every single day I walk through these doors. A man stood up, Mr. Riley, whose daughter Ava was in the program. I used to think people like you never changed, he said bluntly. But my daughter talks about this workshop like it's the only place she feels safe. That's not a fluke. That's you. And your brother. And this place. Applause followed. Even the skeptical board member, Ms. Tran, spoke next. I don't condone what you did before. But I believe in what you're doing now. And the fact that you didn't hide it makes me trust you even more. Nathan blinked, stunned. Trust, the very thing he thought he could never earn again, was now being freely offered. That evening, Ethan found Nathan outside in the grove again, watering the saplings. You always end up back here, Ethan said, carrying 2 mugs of tea. Nathan took one and smiled. It's where I remember I didn't do this alone. He gestured to the trees. Every one of these came from a seed I nearly threw away. And now look. The orchard was growing, not as neatly or symmetrically as before, but with more resilience. More life. Back then. Nathan said quietly, I tried to build my name on glass and concrete. Now I know better. What do you mean? Ethan asked. I used to think reputation was what people said about you in boardrooms. Nathan replied. Now, I think it's what people whisper when you're not in the room, when they watch how you show up, how you make them feel. Ethan sipped his tea. So, what do you think they're whispering now? Nathan smiled. That I finally became someone worth trusting. The next day, an unexpected visitor arrived at the workshop, David Rains, the very reporter who had written the damaging article. He asked to speak to Nathan in private. Inside the office, David was uncharacteristically subdued. I didn't expect this reaction, he admitted. Usually stories like yours fade. People stay silent. They don't fight back. Nathan sat across from him, steady. I didn't fight back. They did. David looked around. I've never seen this before. Kids defending a teacher. Parents writing letters. Districts issuing support statements. Nathan leaned forward. Then maybe it's time you wrote a different story. There was a long silence. David finally said, I think I will. 3 days later, a follow-up article went live. The man who grew backwards to move forward. The real story of Nathan Moore. It was honest, raw, and full of quotes from students and parents. It ended with a line that silenced all doubt. In a world quick to cancel, sometimes the bravest thing is to rebuild. Not your image, but your impact. The workshop returned to its rhythm. But something had changed in the air. It wasn't just about second chances anymore. It was about legacy. And this time, it was rooted deep. 1 year. It had been 1 full year since Second Chance Workshop first opened its doors, and in that time, more than 60 students had passed through, some for a season, others still coming every week. In that time, Nathan Moore had gone from a disgraced real estate developer to a beloved mentor, and Ethan Moore, from a quiet woodworker to a statewide name in vocational reform. But to both of them, none of that mattered as much as what today represented. The 1-year anniversary. The students had decorated the workshop with strings of wood-carved ornaments, each shaped by hand. Each etched with the names of people who had helped build the place. Luis and Ava had even organized a slideshow. And Amanda prepared snacks with the help of a few parents who insisted on doing their part. Ethan stood by the workbench, watching it all unfold. He hadn't realized how much this meant to everyone until now. The laughter, the hugs, the nervous but proud voices, this was the legacy their parents had hoped for when they split the land between their sons. He turned as Nathan walked in, holding a small wooden crate filled with young saplings. "They're ready," Nathan said. Ethan nodded. "The kids? Already at the grove." They drove out to the edge of the original land, the place where the orchard once stood, where the betrayal had begun, and where healing had taken root. A crowd was gathered: students, parents, local officials, neighbors. A simple wooden platform stood under a handmade arch of apple branches with two small signs beside it. "In memory of Harold and Alice Moore, who believed in the long road." And to everyone still walking it, Nathan stepped up first. His voice trembled only once, but he steadied himself. "This grove was once a symbol of what I broke. And now it's a symbol of what we've rebuilt. Not just between brothers, but between generations. Between who we were and who we're trying to become." He paused, scanning the crowd. "Some of you came here lost. Some angry, some afraid. But every one of you showed up. You stayed. You built something that matters. And now, we plant these trees not as a replacement for the ones I destroyed, but as a promise that we will continue to grow together." Ethan joined him, holding a small sapling. "Dad always said the best trees take time, and Mom said the best things take heart. I think we've finally learned to listen to both." They knelt together and pressed the first sapling into the soil. One by one, students followed. Luis planted one with a crooked little plaque, "For my future." Ava added another with 4 second chances. Amanda and Emily placed a third. "For the family you choose." It took nearly an hour, but no one rushed. Because each seedling, each spade of earth, each shared look between people once broken, now mending, was sacred. Later, back at the workshop, the evening sun cast a golden glow across the fields. A gentle wind carried the scent of wood shavings, cinnamon cookies, and apple blossoms from the nearby grove. Ethan, Nathan, and Amanda stood outside, watching the last of the families wave goodbye. Nathan turned to his brother. "You remember when I said success was how people saw you?" Ethan smiled. "Yeah, I hated that definition." Nathan chuckled. "I've got a new one now." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Let's hear it." Nathan looked out toward the saplings, where laughter still lingered. "Success," he said, "is building something that keeps growing, even after you're gone." Ethan looked down, then at his brother. "Then we're finally rich." Amanda leaned in, resting her head on Ethan's shoulder. "And no one can forge that." They stood in silence, as the stars began to blink awake above them, just like that first night in the grove, when Nathan had planted a seed not just in soil, but in hope. The last lantern flickered behind them. The workshop darkened. But the legacy, the one made of sawdust, mistakes, forgiveness, and faith, that light would never go out. The small conference room at Springfield High School buzzed with energy. Posters lined the walls displaying student-made furniture, photos from the Grove ceremony, and testimonials from families who had watched their children transform. But Ethan barely noticed the decor. His attention was fixed on the round table of people seated before him, superintendents from 2 nearby counties, a representative from the State Education Board, and even a reporter from the Oregon Educators Weekly. Nathan stood at the front with a projector remote in hand. Confident, polished, poised. "And so," Nathan concluded, gesturing toward the slide labeled Phase 2, Regional Model, with $250,000 in state-matched grants and local school partnerships. "We're proposing to open 3 new second-chance satellite workshops by next spring." There was a pause, then applause. Ethan joined in, though slower. His smile, polite. His thoughts, clouded. Later, back at the workshop, Nathan was glowing. "That went better than I expected," he said, tossing his blazer on the chair. "Did you see Superintendent Myers nodding during my pitch?" "I think we've got real momentum." Ethan leaned on the counter. It was a solid presentation. Nathan noticed the hesitation in his tone. "But," Ethan exhaled, It's fast, Nate. 3 workshops in 6 months. We have the model. We have the funding. We even have trained apprentices ready to step up. But we don't have us. Not everywhere. The workshop works because we're here. Because we know these kids. The growth you're planning, it's exciting, but it could stretch the roots too thin. Nathan's face tightened. You think I'm rushing it? I think you're trying to replicate something that wasn't built in a spreadsheet, Ethan said gently. Nathan looked away. You always see risk first. And you always see reward first, Ethan replied. That's what makes us a team until we stop listening to each other. Silence fell between them. Then Nathan spoke, more quietly. I don't want this to stay small forever. Ethan nodded. I don't either. I just want it to grow without breaking. That weekend, Nathan took a solo trip to Pendleton, a small town interested in hosting one of the new workshops. He toured a vacant building downtown, a former print shop with exposed beams and a perfect layout for conversion. The town council welcomed him with open arms, offering matching funds, volunteer labor, even press coverage. It was everything he had dreamed of a year ago: influence, expansion, legacy. But on the drive home, a voicemail from Ethan played in his truck. Jaden's mom stopped by the shop today. Said he hasn't spoken much at home since you left. You've been the one he opens up to. Nate, I know you want to grow this. But remember, it's not just about new buildings. It's about being there. For the ones who stayed. Nathan stared out at the endless highway. He had always chased forward. But maybe, just maybe, he needed to slow down and look sideways. On Monday, Nathan returned to find Ethan repairing a broken lathe, covered in grease and sawdust. Nathan rolled up his sleeves and joined him without a word. For a while, they worked in silence. The rhythm of labor speaking more than words could. Finally, Nathan said, what if we just open one new location next term? Test the model slowly. Be present. Ethan looked at him, surprised, then nodded. That's growth I can stand behind. Nathan smiled. And maybe I'll still get my statewide empire, eventually. Ethan chuckled. Just make sure it has a soul. That evening, they gathered with Amanda, the student leadership team, and local mentors around a whiteboard with new site planning, Pendleton written at the top. They began sketching. It wasn't just expansion. It was evolution with roots intact. Pendleton was quiet in the early morning, the kind of small town where the sound of coffee cups clinking inside diners carried across empty sidewalks. Nathan stood outside the old print shop, now cleared of debris, ready to become the first Second Chance Workshop satellite. It felt momentous, like standing on the edge of something much bigger than himself. Inside, a camera crew was setting up. The Oregon State Channel had reached out after Nathan's keynote speech and offered a feature story, an exclusive interview about the workshop's mission and its expansion. It was everything Nathan had dreamed of years ago: recognition, impact, narrative control. But this time, the camera didn't excite him the way it once did. Because Ethan wasn't here. Back in Springfield, Ethan was helping Jaden realign a warped bench frame. The boy had grown significantly in the last year, quieter, yes, but also more thoughtful, more focused. You sand too fast, Ethan said gently. Let the tool do the work. Jaden nodded, adjusting his grip. It's easier when you say it. Ethan smiled. That's the trick. A good teacher isn't the one who knows everything. It's the one who shows you how to hear the wood. Jaden didn't reply right away. Then, is Mr. Nathan coming back? Ethan looked up, startled by the directness. I think he will, he said after a pause. He just needs to see what's most important. In Pendleton, the interview began. Nathan sat beneath warm lights in front of a custom-carved workbench. The reporter smiled behind her clipboard. You've built something incredible here, she said. And from such a complicated past. Nathan nodded. It wasn't easy. But that's what second chances are: difficult, humbling, and necessary. The reporter leaned in. We've heard rumors of you running for a seat on the Regional Education Advisory Board. Is that true? Nathan blinked. I hadn't considered that, but you're clearly the face of this movement. It's rare to see someone recover their reputation and build something so real. You could change the system from the inside. The crew nodded. The lights shone. The idea settled like a seed in Nathan's mind. It was flattering, logical, but it didn't sit right. Because he could hear Ethan's voice in his head. It's not about buildings. It's about being there. Nathan shifted in his chair. I appreciate the thought, he said carefully. But I'm not the face of this. I'm the hands. And I'm not doing this alone. Later that day, Nathan skipped the formal lunch. He drove instead. 3 hours straight through. Straight back to Springfield. At sunset, he walked into the workshop. Students were packing up. Amanda was erasing the whiteboard. Ethan was sweeping quietly. Nathan didn't say a word. He just walked over, picked up the second broom, and started sweeping beside him. After a while, Ethan said, "How was the spotlight?" Nathan chuckled. Bright. Distracting. And not where I wanted to be. Ethan stopped. Looked at him. You left early? Didn't feel like my place anymore, Nathan said. Not without you. Not without this. Amanda stepped forward, arms crossed, but smiling. You didn't even call. Nathan grinned. Wanted to surprise you. Jaden appeared from behind a row of tool racks. He gave Nathan a small nod. You're back. Nathan knelt beside him. Yeah, and I brought something for the new workbench. He pulled out a small brass plate engraved with, built by many hands, guided by one heart. He handed it to Jaden. Want to help me install it? Jaden nodded. That night, the three adults sat in the office with tea and soft music playing from an old radio. I had the chance to run for the education board, Nathan said quietly. They would have supported it. But I'd be gone half the time. Ethan looked up. And I realized something. You were right. We're not just building a model. We're building people. And that can't be done from an office. Amanda smiled. Glad you found your way back. Nathan looked down at his hands. Sometimes I still feel like I don't deserve this. You don't have to deserve it, Ethan said. You just have to protect it. Nathan raised his cup. To the next season. Ethan clinked his mug. One tree at a time. Amanda added, and one story at a time. The light above them flickered softly. Outside, the wind rustled through the grove. And inside, 3 people who had once been broken sat surrounded by what they'd grown, something humble, strong, and unshakably real. The early spring breeze swept through the now flourishing Moore Legacy Grove, rustling rows of young apple trees that had grown tall over the last 5 years. Some bore blossoms, some bore fruit, but all of them bore stories. Stories of broken boys who found their voice through sanding blocks. Of girls once labeled troubled who now taught others how to carve dovetail joints with precision. Of 2 brothers who had nearly lost each other, then rebuilt their bond plank by plank. And now, those same brothers stood at the edge of the grove, watching a new generation arrive. Luis, now 21, pulled into the gravel lot in a beat-up truck with a handmade Second Chance logo painted on the side. He stepped out with a quiet confidence that neither Nathan nor Ethan had ever seen in him as a teen. Behind him came Ava, now in her 2nd year of a community teaching fellowship, her hair tied back. Tool belt around her waist, her stride purposeful. More arrived. Jaden, Maya, Ellis. Each one had once walked through the doors of the workshop with some invisible burden. Now, they returned as builders of their own. The plan had begun a year ago. To transition the leadership of Second Chance Workshop slowly and steadily into the hands of its graduates, those who truly understood its heart. And today marked the final step. Inside the newly remodeled Pendleton branch, once an empty print shop, now a thriving training center, Ethan and Nathan gathered the alumni in the central meeting space. Ethan opened with his usual calm. You know what this place was meant to be. You helped shape it. Now, we're ready to pass it to you, not because we're leaving, but because you're ready. Nathan added, we'll still be around. Mentoring. Supporting. But you'll be the ones holding the tools and the trust. Louise stepped forward, hesitant. What if we mess it up? Ethan smiled. Then you'll fix it. Like we did. Jaden, now taller than both brothers, added, we don't want to be copies of you guys. We want to keep the heart, but find our own way. Nathan nodded, deeply moved. That's all we ever hoped for. They handed out folders. Not contracts. Not policies. Just letters written personally to each alum. Nathan's letter to Louise read, you were the first to believe I could lead, even when I didn't believe it myself. Now, you lead others not because you're perfect, but because you're patient. That's more rare than talent. Ethan's letter to Ava included, when you helped your classmate fix her broken drawer and stayed behind to sweep without being asked, I knew. You were already a teacher. You just needed the space to become one. That evening, as twilight settled over the hills, a small celebration was held in the original Springfield workshop. Nothing grand. Just the way they liked it. Students, families, mentors. Old photos and new carvings hung side by side on the walls. Amanda and Emily, now 12 and nearly as tall as her father, helped set out plates of Ethan's famous cornbread and Amanda's roasted vegetables. Nathan gave a brief toast. We thought we were building furniture, he said, raising his cup. But we were really building people. Thank you for becoming more than we ever imagined. Ethan added. And for continuing what we began, not perfectly, but with heart. Tears welled up in more than a few eyes. Because this wasn't a goodbye. It was a harvest. After the celebration. As people lingered and music played low, Ethan and Nathan slipped outside into the cool air. They sat on the same old bench facing the grove, now fully grown. The stars blinked above. The wind carried the faint scent of blossoms. Nathan let out a long breath. It's strange. Letting go without stepping away. Ethan smiled. That's what good builders do. They make things that last, even after their hands are gone. Nathan looked toward the trees. Do you think Mom and Dad would be proud? Ethan answered without hesitation. I think they're here. In every root, every table, every second chance. They sat in silence, watching the wind dance between the leaves. And though neither spoke the words, they both felt the same truth settle between them. This wasn't the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of a legacy. The workshop hummed with activity on a cool autumn morning. Sunlight spilling through large windows and casting warm patterns on workbenches. Students gathered around, voices lively as they shared progress on their latest projects. Luis and Ava, now lead instructors, moved between tables offering guidance. Their years of experience as former students gave them a rare blend of authority and empathy. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The doors burst open, and a school counselor entered, her face tense. Luis, Ava, she called quietly, we need to talk about Carter. Luis frowned. Carter was a sophomore known for his talent, but also for a temper that sometimes boiled over. What happened? Ava asked. The counselor sighed. He was caught cheating during a major exam. The school board is considering expulsion. Luis's jaw clenched. Carter's one of our best, but this is serious. Ava nodded, brows furrowed. He made a mistake. But throwing him out might undo all the progress he's made here. Luis glanced at the students working nearby. We have to decide, do we protect the program's integrity or do we protect the kid? That evening, Luis and Ava sat together late in the workshop's office, papers spread around them. We need a plan, Ava said, rubbing her temples. If we don't act, Carter's future could be over. Luis leaned back, thoughtful. Remember how we were once given a second chance? That's what this place stands for. But second chances don't mean ignoring consequences, Ava said firmly. We have to hold him accountable or we lose the trust of everyone who believes in us. Luis nodded. Maybe it's about balance. punishment with opportunity. They drafted a proposal for a restorative justice plan. Carter would continue in the workshop under probation, complete extra community service projects, and attend counseling sessions. They also recommended a presentation to the school board explaining the workshop's role in rehabilitation. The next day, Nathan and Ethan joined the discussion. Nathan listened carefully. "You're stepping into leadership. This is what it means, making tough calls." Ethan added, "It's never easy, but it's necessary." Carter entered, eyes downcast. Luis addressed him gently. "We believe in you, but you have to believe in yourself too." Ava smiled. "This is your chance to make it right." Carter nodded slowly, tears brimming. Weeks passed. Carter worked hard, more focused, more determined. He painted benches for the community park, tutored younger students, and attended every counseling session. His growth was evident. At the next board meeting, Luis and Ava presented their proposal. The board members, impressed by Carter's progress and the workshop's impact, voted unanimously to support the restorative plan. One afternoon, as the sun set behind the grove, Carter handed Luis a carved wooden plaque. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he said quietly. Luis smiled, pride shining. "That's what second chances are for." The workshop was buzzing with excitement as a large, official-looking envelope arrived in the mail. Ethan carefully broke the seal, his eyes scanning the letter with growing amazement. "We've been awarded the National Community Impact Grant," he announced, voice filled with disbelief. $1 million over the next 3 years to expand our programs and support more youth across Oregon. Nathan, standing nearby, grinned widely. "This is it. The break we've been working toward." Amanda clapped her hands. "All those years of sweat and hope, it's finally paying off." News spread quickly, and the local press caught wind. Cameras arrived the next day, and Ethan and Nathan found themselves sharing their journey with reporters, telling the story of Second Chance Workshop, the Grove, and the countless young lives transformed. Luis, Ava, and Jaden, now confident leaders, spoke alongside them. Their voices carried the authenticity and passion that no polished speech could match. With funding secured, plans to open 3 new satellite workshops moved swiftly forward. New instructors were hired, training programs developed, and partnerships forged with schools and community organizations. Despite the rapid growth, Ethan and Nathan remained deeply involved, visiting every new site, mentoring staff, and keeping the mission focused. One crisp morning, at a gathering for all program sites, Ethan stood on stage, looking out at the sea of faces. "This grant is more than money," he said. "It's a testament to what we've built together, hope, resilience, and second chances. But it's also a responsibility. To keep growing, yes, but to never lose sight of why we started." Nathan stepped forward. "Our legacy isn't just the buildings or the grants. It's the people, every student, every instructor, every supporter who believes in transformation." Applause erupted. The workshop was no longer a small-town secret, but a statewide beacon. Back at the original Springfield workshop, late into the evening, Nathan and Ethan sat beneath the stars in the Legacy Grove. "We've come a long way," Nathan mused. Ethan nodded. "And there's still so far to go." Nathan smiled. "But we're not doing it alone anymore." They raised their mugs in quiet toast, to the future, to growth, and to every seed planted with care. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the Portland Community Center where Jaden was standing before a crowd of eager students and local officials. It was the inaugural opening of the first Second Chance Workshop outside of Oregon, this time in Vancouver, Washington. Years ago, Jaden was just a quiet, uncertain teenager. Now, he was a confident leader, an alumnus-turned-program director, ready to carry the legacy beyond its roots. Back in Springfield, Ethan and Nathan received video calls throughout the day from the new site. Jaden's enthusiasm was contagious as he showcased the workshop's bustling activity. "Look at this place," Jaden beamed, holding his phone steady as students practiced jointing and sanding. "We're building futures one plank at a time, just like you taught me." Nathan smiled, proud beyond words. "You've done us all proud, kid." Ethan nodded. "It's incredible to see how far this has come, from a small workshop to an international movement. But expansion came with new challenges." Jaden confided, "The community here is different. The struggles are familiar, but the resources aren't always the same. We have to adapt the model to fit." Nathan advised, "That's the key, holding on to the heart, but adjusting the hands." Ethan added, "And remember, you're never alone. Reach out anytime." Meanwhile, Ava was preparing for a speaking tour across the West Coast to share their success story. Her talks inspired educators and policymakers, spreading the message that vocational education combined with compassion could change lives. At the Springfield workshop, Ethan and Nathan reflected on how a single seed had grown into a sprawling forest. "We planted more than trees," Ethan said. Nathan agreed. "We planted hope. And now it's taking root everywhere." They stood together beneath the stars in the grove, the wind whispering promises of new beginnings. The sun rose over Springfield on a crisp spring morning, illuminating the Second Chance Workshop's campus with a golden glow. Banners fluttered in the breeze, emblazoned with the workshop's emblem, a tree with deep roots and wide branches, symbolizing growth and connection. It was the 10th anniversary of the workshop's founding, and the celebration promised to be the largest yet. Inside the workshop's main hall, a crowd gathered: students, alumni, educators, families, community leaders, and longtime supporters. Cameras from regional news outlets captured moments of laughter, hugs, and heartfelt speeches. Nathan and Ethan stood side by side near the stage, their faces reflecting the weight and joy of the journey. Nathan spoke first. 10 years ago, this place was just an idea, born from mistakes, hope, and a lot of hard work. Today, it's a living testament to what's possible when we choose to believe in second chances. Ethan continued. "We started with a grove, trees planted to honor our parents and our past. But it grew into so much more. Into lives rebuilt, futures reclaimed, and communities united." One by one, former students stepped forward. Luis spoke of how the workshop saved him from a path of uncertainty and gave him purpose. Ava shared her journey from student to instructor, inspiring others to find their voice. Jaden's video message from the Vancouver branch brought cheers and applause. The highlight of the event was the unveiling of a bronze statue in the grove, two figures representing brothers, standing together beneath a spreading tree. Inscribed at the base, "Roots may be hidden, but they give strength to all that grows." As the sun dipped low, Nathan, Ethan, and Amanda gathered quietly by the statue. Nathan sighed, content. Ethan smiled softly. "Do you think we'll ever stop growing?" Nathan shook his head. "No, because this isn't just ours anymore. It belongs to everyone who's ever been given a chance to start again." Amanda reached out, squeezing their hands. "And that's a legacy worth everything." They stood together, bathed in the fading light, surrounded by the living proof that broken things can be made whole. The morning fog in Eugene, Oregon, lingered like a veil over the Moore family home, quiet and still after the funeral. The once lively